Welcome to the Plant Cunning Podcast,
where we explore a relationship to plants, other people, and the mysteries of nature.
Coming to you from the high Allegheny Plateau in central New York.
We are your hosts, AC Stauble
and Isaac Hill. Okay, so today on the Plant Cunning Podcast, we welcome Christine Herbert to the show. Christine is an herbalist in the UK, and she's just written a book called Digestion, the Key to Good Health, Gastrointestinal Wellbeing Using Herbs and Natural Healing, which is a wonderful book.
Yeah.
You know, this is a fantastic topic as well because digestion is important for everybody, every single person. You know, digestion is the seat of health, and there's so many ways that herbalists can help bring people into balance. So, Christine, how are you today?
I'm good, thank you. Very good. I would say, apart from being dark here, I prefer the light, but I'm very good, thank you. Yes. And you? Are you both well?
Yes.
Doing great, yeah.
Relatively.
Yeah, it's blizzarding here today in Central.
Yeah.
So it's kind of beautiful, though.
It's beautiful. It's very beautiful.
Yeah.
But yeah, there isn't very much light. This is one of the darkest times of the year, and it always brings its, wanting to hibernate and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was a cuddle fest this morning trying to get out of bed. We had a cat and 2 dogs all cuddled up, so
Lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
it's grey and wet here in Norfolk.
Yeah.
In England, and yes, I'm waiting for solstice to be passed.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, at least with the snow there's like brightness, know.
True.
But.
Yeah. So, Christine, we have a traditional first question for the show, and it's, how did you come to the plant path?
Right. Well, as a child, I loved plants. I was the one who went out and picked plants and pressed them and put them in a scrapbook and, did all those lovely things. And I've always loved plants right the way through my life. And I'm well going through my life now. My next kind of path after childhood, actually, I went into science, and I was actually a biomedical scientist for nearly 20 years, specializing in hematology, which actually has been very useful as a herbalist. We've always grown our own fruit and veg. We've always been, and we've got a small holding now, and we aim at self-sufficiency. So we do all our own food as much as possible. So I'm a very practical person. I like things to be, I'm a Capricorn and I'm practical.
I was just going to ask, I was like, are you a fellow Capricorn?
I am a Capricorn, and I'm very practical.
Yes.
And so I'd done the plants for eating, and we were doing the self-sufficiency. So it just seemed a logical step, plants for medicine. And so I thought, okay, I'll go and learn some stuff about it. I had no intention of practicing. I really didn't. But I started learning, and I found it so fascinating that I carried on, and I ended up being a herbalist.
Yeah.
And that's now 27 years ago. Yeah, 27 years ago now. I have actually been retired now for 3 years. Well, I call it retired, but actually I've written 3 books, and I'm doing
It's different kind of
different kind. So I don't see patients anymore. But so yes, that's how I got to herbal medicine. And it's a brilliant subject because you never stop learning.
Oh, for sure.
I may be just about 70 now, but I never will ever stop learning, and I will always be a herbalist.
Yeah. Absolutely. So during your practice, I'm imagining that you saw the issues of digestion come up a lot, right?
Absolutely. And that's really why I decided to write the book. So this was, as I say, this is my 3rd book. And my first 2 books first was on sleep. The second was on inflammation, in other words, the source of all chronic disease. And the 3rd was digestion. And to be honest, those 3 things, digestion, inflammation, and sleep problems, were what I saw in my clinic every day. That's almost, I would say that covers 90%, maybe 99% of all of your patients. Yeah. If you can sort the gut out, then, you can sort everything out, to be honest. I saw so many people with those kind of problems. I thought, well, actually, I've learned a lot. I'll write it down. And all of my books are based on case studies. I will only write about things that I have experienced and sorted out for myself. So I had lots and lots of case studies, and so that's why digestion, because it covers so much. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So why is digestion so important for health?
Digestion is the powerhouse of the body. Hippocrates knew that. This is not new, is it? Everybody in the past has known that the gut is number one. Ayurveda says, if treat the gut. Gut is most important. What we eat is actually key to that, but the gut, and that's the most important factor in keeping the gut healthy. But the gut we've got the gut-brain axis, where we've got that bidirectional link between the gut and the brain. So the gut controls all our emotions. It controls the way the body works. It controls our hormones. It controls everything in our body. And if the gut is wrong, then something is going to be wrong with the body. And the other thing is, the gut's the easiest thing to treat. If you're going to treat someone, you always start with the gut, because that fixes quicker than anything else, and it's the most important and the easiest bit to treat, actually. So, although I always start with diet. So diet is my number one place to start. And if I've got a patient with me who is really reluctant to do any diet changes, I have to think twice about carrying on with them, because then I don't think you're doing any better than giving drugs as a conventional medic does, without changing diet. So diet is number one for anything. So in a consultation, when I see someone, which I'm not doing now, but I'm teaching it, I talk more about diet than anything else. That's the most important thing to talk about with people. The herbs come in later, and they will help to tweak everything. But herbs are also part of food, aren't they? So it's about putting them in as food. The other factors in gut problems, as well as diet, but as I say, diet's number one. The other factors are things like lifestyle and stress, good sleep, avoiding antibiotics, avoiding other medications as much as possible. So there's lots of things you need to take into account. But gut is number one to work on.
Yeah.
And, easiest, as I say.
Yeah, like you're saying, you can throw herbs at a problem, but if you're still ingesting foods that are inflaming your body, or ingesting antibiotics that are wiping out your good gut flora, the herbs can only do so much. So
Exactly. They cannot beat, if you are putting something into your body that's upsetting it, herbs can't beat that. And so if you're just giving herbs and not altering diet, or if someone's doing that for themselves, they say, right, okay, so I don't know, fennel's great for my digestion, it'll stop the gas. But if you don't stop the food that's causing the gas, then it's not going to work.
Yeah. So what are the biggest problems that people come in your experience with their case studies, when people come in with the gut problems? What are the with the diet, what are the main problems? Is it just the standard industrial ultra processed food, and that is, or are there also like differences in terms of temperament? And
like, what are you looking for?
Exactly. So ultra processed food is a biggie. That's really important, and it seems to be particularly important for children. Children seem to be eating far too much of that these days, and it's such a horror. But eating wrong for yourself. So there's no such thing as one diet for everybody. We've all got to find the right diet for ourselves. So if you've got a person with a hot constitution, and they're eating hot chili curries and lots of alcohol, lots of sugar, lots of coffee, they're doing themselves a disservice. Whereas someone who is cool might do very well with eating hot curries and even coffee. Coffee's not bad per se, it's just wrong, for the wrong person. So it's eating the right diet for the individual, and so finding that, I think is actually probably the most important thing I do, is finding the right diet for people.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so how do you do that? Because the other thing is that listening to different people's opinions and all these different experts,
Yeah.
everyone has it. Some people think you should be a raw vegan. Some people think you should be a raw carnivore. Some
Yes.
people think you should just have a balanced macrobiotic diet. You know, there are all these different ideas of what an ideal diet is.
It can be confusing out here.
Yeah.
It can be very confusing, and so many people are reading that this is good for this and this is good for the other, and nothing is good for everybody all the same. So how do you do that? So you look at the person, you take a case history, you listen to what they're saying, you look at what they're doing when they're saying these things, you observe. If they're sat there in shorts and t-shirt and I'm sat in jumpers and woolly boots and that kind of thing, then I know they're pretty hot.
Yeah.
And so they shouldn't be doing that. And the opposite as well, if they're all bundled up and I'm in summer clothes, then there's something wrong there. So those are the extremes, of course.
Yeah.
But it's about looking at the person and checking them, seeing what they should be doing. Now, I don't think anyone in my country, and I suspect in your northern parts of your country, should be raw vegan all year round. If you live in a cold climate, you shouldn't eat raw, not all year round. Maybe if you live in a very well heated houses and never go outside, then you might cope with it. But it's not a good idea. It will make you cold.
Yeah.
And we need warming foods if we live in a cold climate. And in the summer, yes, you can do raw vegan if that's what you want, if that suits you, but not in the winter, not when it's cold. So you look at where people live, what they're doing, how they're working, and how they are. To some extent, I use the humoral constitutions, the hot, dry, cold, wet constitutions. I like Matthew Wood's way of sorting people into constitutions. I also use Ayurveda constitutions. So, I'll use all of those elements to decide how to look at someone and how to decide what they should be eating. And then, of course, there's also the foods that if someone has a chronic inflammatory disease, which most people do have that come to see me, and that, of course, covers things like, it covers IBS, it covers cardiovascular disease, it covers arthritis, cancer, all those, chronic inflammatory diseases. There are some foods that are completely inflammatory to everybody and that they should reduce. So these are things like wheat, gluten, dairy, sugar, pork, oranges, tea, coffee, alcohol, some of the fats, especially the trans fats, all those kind of things. So they're inflammatory to everybody. So they need reducing. And then the other thing that I do, and has really made a big difference to my practice actually, is to sort out food intolerances.
Yeah.
I learned to muscle test, applied kinesiology. I actually had to be taught it 3 times by 3 different teachers. I mean, I come from a science background. I couldn't quite understand this thing. This is weird. No, this can't be right. So I had to be taught it by 3 different teachers before I would even think about trying it. But I love it. I absolutely adore muscle testing, and I think it's so useful for finding out food intolerances. It's quick, easy, cheap. So I teach it a lot. Wherever I can, I teach other herbalists and herbal students to muscle test for food intolerances.
Can you give us a brief overview of how you do it?
Just about. So basically what I'm doing, I'm asking the person's body what it likes and doesn't like. I'm tapping into the subconscious knows. It's not the brain answering, it's the body answering. So I'm using a muscle in the arm that I'm pressing on gently. It's very gentle pressing. I get them to hold their arm out straight. I gently press on it while they are holding a food of some kind. And so I'm asking the body, is this food okay or not? Simple. So a yes is a strong arm, and a no is a weak arm, a weak muscle. So it's that simple. And that, together with a good medical history, observation, and often people say the one thing I couldn't give up is, and that's what they need to give up. So, those kind of things, put them all together, and that will give you a food intolerance. So what I do, I say, go away, tell them how to do it, tell them how to cut out dairy, how to cut out wheat, how to cut out nightshades or whatever it is, and give them lots of ideas, lots of recipes, lots of ideas. And we
Nice.
come back 3 weeks later and we see if it's worked.
Huh?
Far easier than quicker than doing an elimination diet.
I love that. And I also appreciate that you're giving people recipes too, because it can be so hard to make these changes. If you're used to eating the same kind of breakfast, same kind of lunch every day, it can be so hard to completely switch up your diet. But if you're, just introducing new recipes and new ideas, and that feels a lot better than like taking away the things that you love, in your diet. So that's a good approach. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. I just think it's really important, because if you overwhelm someone by saying, you've got to give up this, this, and this, and not tell them how to do it, then that's no good. They're just not going to do any of it. You have to give them reasonably easy, reasonably achievable things to do. A good target. Yeah.
And an elimination diet can be pretty hard for a lot of people.
I think it's too difficult.
Yeah. It's I mean, you're getting rid of everything pretty much.
Yeah.
And then for doing it for a month, 2 months, 3 months, like that's and then having to add things in. But it does make sense just to like remove the things that you think are causing the problem and see if they are or not. That makes a lot of sense.
So I reckon I get 99% success rate like that.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
So I'm curious about the wheat and the way that we process flour now in the modern world. It's like by the time it's on the shelf, it's already rancid, and so of course it's inflammatory to our body. But have you experimented with people like grinding their own grains or getting fresh grains to see if it makes a difference?
I think that's probably too difficult for most people. I don't think that's really. I haven't seen. It would be interesting to know, but I haven't tried that. No, I'm sorry. I have tried raw milk.
Okay.
So I tried raw milk with one or two people. One or two people said, "Can I try raw milk?" Because I don't want to give up the milk.
Yeah.
But that hasn't worked for most people.
Okay. Yeah, good to know. Because that's mine. Like, I can't give up bread. So that's why.
Well, that means it's what you should give up.
Exactly. I know.
The trouble with both dairy and wheat, it occupies opium receptors in the brain. It gives us a high, doesn't it?
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's why we find it difficult to give. I know for me, it's what I used to say. I used to say I can't give up wheat and gluten, but about 2-3 years ago I did. It was actually when I retired and had time to think about things, and sorted out all my arthritis.
Oh my goodness, really?
I did. And then when I did try it again 6 months later, and the arthritis came straight back. So I knew. So I haven't touched it since.
Good for you. Yeah, that's great.
And this also brings to the question, like, what actually is an intolerance? Like is there a spectrum of intolerance? Where does
is it cut and dry?
Intolerance and allergy? And like, what is intolerance?
Okay, so and let's start with what's an allergy. To me, an allergy is something that can be life-threatening, can cause breathing difficulties, that people need to carry an EpiPen for, because it's a severe reaction. An intolerance, I see as being everything short of that severity. So an intolerance can be pretty severe, but it's not life-threatening, and it doesn't require but it can be mild. It can cause anything from immediate vomiting and diarrhea to just a little bit of a stomach ache, or I'll get a skin rash in 2 days' time if I eat that. It's a very wide spectrum, and someone with an intolerance may find that actually, if they're well and they're not under pressure, there's no stress, they can eat a bit of that food that they're intolerant to. They have to find their level of intolerance. Others can't have a scrap. It's finding your level of intolerance.
Yeah.
And so I kind of understand intolerance too, in terms of, like, most of the time it's proteins, right, that like get through the gut, and then you get an antibody that then rejects it.
Mhm.
And so like if you have a healthier gut, then you're more tolerant of the intolerant
Yeah.
foods, right?
Yeah.
So how does that work in terms of different people's intolerances? Like to milk, gluten, they're all inflammatory. So
Mhm.
where is that difference between the inflammatory and the
Okay.
tolerant?
So they're inflammatory to everybody, but inflammatory just means that if you're not well, if you're under pressure, if the body's not functioning as it should do, then it will make it worse. An intolerance will generally be an immunological reaction, an antigen antibody reaction, whereas an inflammatory process is not necessarily that. Yeah. I mean, if there is an antibody antigen reaction, yes, that's inflammatory,
Right.
but
Okay.
it's not always an antigen reaction, antibody antigen reaction. Yeah. So there are some intolerances, for example, salicylate sensitivity. Now, salicylates are present in all plant materials. So it's the kind of thing that all you can do is reduce the level of salicylate sensitivity. And I see that much more as being an irritant to the gut rather than it's probably not immunological. This is my personal thinking. I may be wrong. I don't know, but that's how I see things, and also things like oxalate sensitivity, lectin sensitivity.
Yeah.
All those are irritants rather than immunological intolerances. So I think intolerances have a spectrum as well. You know, there's spectrum of severity, but also a spectrum of the way they act on the body. The salicylate sensitivity is actually very interesting because when I first started out, I hardly saw it. It was very rare.
Oh.
When I was finishing 3 years ago, I reckon 40% of my patients had salicylate sensitivity.
Wow.
And that's because turmeric has become mainstream. Turmeric is very high in salicylates. And everybody's saying turmeric is good for you. Will basically fix everything. It's the magic panacea. It's very high in salicylates. I've seen lots of people start reacting to them with that. But also berries. So eating berries, so blueberries, raspberries, strawberries, etc., used to be seasonal. We used to get them for a few months a year. We never got them all year round. Now people eat them all year round. And I think that's the other big cause of salicylate sensitivity. It's just, people are eating things that they think are healthy. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they may be healthy, but we shouldn't be eating them all year round and using them all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. Seasonal eating. That's
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So is that also the case with like oxalates?
Can be. Sensitivity I've seen come when people eat loads of raw kale, for example.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't see that very much over here, but I have seen it occasionally. Salicylate is far, far more common. Salicylate sensitive is far, far more common. Yeah. And I think when you can heal the gut, then you can heal the salicylate sensitivity. Whereas if you've got an immunological intolerance, dairy, sometimes wheat, not always wheat, then that never goes. It might come on and off a bit, but it never disappears. So if you're dairy intolerant as a baby, you'll be dairy intolerant as a 50, 60-year-old. It doesn't go away. Yeah. It changes. The way it manifests changes, but it doesn't go away. Yeah.
And can you become immunologically sensitive to dairies?
Yeah, you can. And a big cause of that is something like gastroenteritis, so a bad gut infection. Big course of antibiotics alters the microbiome, of course. So big events, a lot of stress will do it. It's mostly gut stress, but a lot of stress will do it. So yeah, I have seen people become intolerant, but it's also hereditary. So you might. I love seeing families. So you see 2-3 generations of a family, and you can see the change in the food intolerances. Sometimes it skips a generation, but and sometimes it appears later in life. And sometimes it appears, it's just completely variable. Yeah.
Yeah.
And speaking of like multi-generations, this is a theory I've heard that like there's kind of a lag effect to the ultra processed foods. And so whereas our grandparents or great grandparents might not have had such a big reaction to them, over the generations, it's been our generation and then generations after us, it's like even more, we're more sensitive to those ultra processed foods. Do you think that's the case, or because like we talked to her grandma, and she's like, I'm eating all the same things that it's all the same things I had when I was a kid. All the canned food and the Betty Crocker and
Yeah.
But I bet they didn't have as much as people have now.
Right.
yeah.
I mean, certainly in this country, I mean, what I see is my grandparents, who are all dead now, but my grandparents, and they made their 80s, late 80s, never ate processed food. I think, but it was very rare, maybe spam, that kind of thing. But, processed food was an occasional in their diet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
But now people can eat processed food all the time and nothing but. And so I think that's the problem. I think maybe we lag a bit behind the States. I don't know with the processed food thing.
Oh, it's crazy over here.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I used to have woofers, the Worldwide Workers on Organic Farms. We used to have woofers here for 15 years, actually 20 years we had them. And we had a girl from North Carolina come as a woofer, I think 18-year-old, something like that. And she was delighted to see me cooking, and I was teaching. Her family had never cooked.
Wow.
Apart from put a pizza in the oven, they'd never done it. I was really surprised. I'm sure that was unusual, but
I don't know.
It's not. I mean,
you'd be surprised at the lack of cooking skills.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like cooking is an actual skill that people don't learn.
It is just so easy to grab frozen or canned vegetables, throw them together and heat them up in the microwave, so. And I think they're like thinking about my grandmother's generation when she became a mother, it was liberating for her as a woman to not have to cook so much and to use the frozen pre-cooked meals. It was like, oh, this is living it up, but she had no idea about the implications of the lack of nutrients and, all of these things. And so it's just so different now. And I think about the pesticides too, and how that's influencing our gut health. Because even if you're eating vegetables that you get at the grocery store, you prepare them, you cook them yourselves, they're not the same nutrient value as when my grandmother was preparing vegetables for herself. And they're also full of pesticides.
That's right. And I think possibly processed food and standard non-organic food is probably worse today than it was in your grandma's time.
Yeah.
So I think that makes a big difference as well, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, food manufacturers have got really wicked in what they put in.
Yeah, there's the hidden inflation where they keep adding fillers and redoing the food.
Right.
It just keeps getting worse and worse. You don't even notice. But so that's that's the easiest thing, is getting rid of processed food. In fact, it's probably very hard too, because that's for a lot of people that are addicted to it, because it can be very addictive.
And it's like affordable is the other thing.
Yes, that's it's affordable. It saves time, and I absolutely understand why people do it.
Yeah.
But we just need to teach children in school. We need to start educating children in school how to cook, how to eat, and I'm sure that would change things.
Yeah, totally.
Slowly it would change things.
Yeah, starting with the younger folks for sure.
So there's we talked about intolerances a bit, and I really like your distinction between things that are irritants like lectins and oxalates, and then the things like milk proteins and gluten, because they're different. I didn't really understand that, but the lectins and oxalates are things that I've been hearing a lot about, especially for people who are like eating more, because there's people who are off in all these different directions, but some people are eating just meat, the carnivore diet or something. They're like, oxalates will kill you, but it seems like we should be eating, plant matter.
I'm sure we should.
Yeah.
I think we should.
What's the impact of fiber on the diet? Is that a super important thing in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, fiber is absolutely vital for our microbiome. The microbiome can't work without fiber. It is soluble and insoluble fiber, which it can only get really from plant foods. It needs that fiber in order to, and it needs the bacteria to ferment it, and that produces the short chain fatty acids and butyrate being probably the most important. And butyrate it will reduce inflammation, so it'll keep the gut healthy, it will keep the bowel working properly, keeps the microbiome healthy. It maintains the tight junctions. So if someone's got leaky gut, we need the fiber to repair the leaky gut, because the fiber will be used to make butyrate. Butyrate's also an energy source for the gut and for the brain. And so, we need that fiber. It's really, really important, actually. We can't really manage without it. So we have to eat plants. We have to eat some plants.
Or fungi too.
Yeah, fungi too. Absolutely. Yeah.
I think with a lot of these diets, they're good in small for periods of time as like a cleanse or something. Because like the elimination diet can be very helpful. Like if you're just eating meat, maybe and some vegetables, if you got to get rid of all of the other things, or like if you want to do a raw food vegan diet for a period, but it's like when you're on it long term, I think that's where there are like more negative effects.
Yeah. We're meant to eat a good varied diet.
Yeah.
Lots of different plant foods. There's a movement over in this country called Zoe, which is really quite a useful. It's a really good educational process going on. It's King's College Hospital in London with what's his name? Tim Spector. And they have done this. They have got this thing going called Zoe, and it's basically it's education. It's diet education. They're doing a really good job. And one of the things they say is that we all need 30 different plant foods a week.
Yeah.
Which sounds a lot, but then when you think actually that includes all the herbs and spices that you might put on your food, so black pepper, mustard, ginger, garlic, it's actually very easy to do. I reckon I probably eat 30 a day, but
Nice.
Right. Yeah, so that brings us to the herbal element of gut health. And so the first thing is to make sure you're not eating any foods that you're intolerant to, and like getting your diet under control. But then where does the herbal medicine aspect of gut health come in?
Well, there's a fine line between medicine and food. Every day I start my day off with a green smoothie. So I go out in the garden and I pick dandelion leaves, I pick cleavers, I pick hawthorn leaves, I pick lots and lots of different plantain leaves, nettle leaves, etc., etc. It goes on and on. And I put that into a green smoothie, whiz it up with some garlic and some lemon. And that's my start to the day. That's medicine. That is gut health, that's liver health, that's lymph health, that's working on the whole body as medicine. But it's food, and I do it because I enjoy it. I wouldn't have it if I didn't enjoy it. So we can add lots of medicinal herbs to our diet: garlic, ginger, chili, cardamom, coriander. We can add those things to our diet either as teas or in food or whatever. So that's a great way to use herbs in the diet. We can eat all of those. So, but if we want to, say, heal the gut, if we've got leaky gut, which is obviously very common, anyone got IBS, they will have an element of leaky gut, because if there's inflammation in the gut, that creates gaps and so on, and lets larger molecules through than should do. So things like aloe vera juice will help to heal that. A favorite of mine is actually plantain and calendula tea.
Yes.
So you can make a plantain and calendula tea. You can make it overnight if you want. Drink it first thing on an empty stomach, and that will help to really heal the gut. Marshmallow root as a powder is a lovely food, almost soluble fiber. So acts as a prebiotic, but it's demulcent. It soothes the gut. It soothes sore gut.
How much marshmallow root do you use, like, per dose? Is it like once a day if somebody has like a leaky gut, or is it like before you eat every meal? Like, what's your dosage?
If they've got a lot of reflux, then I would definitely do it before each meal.
Okay.
Because it does help with reflux quite a lot. It can be once a day. It depends on their life and how easy it is to put into their lifestyle. But I would probably go for something like a teaspoon 3 times a day, something like that. Or it would be 3 teaspoons first thing in the morning if that's easier for them.
Okay.
Whatever whatever's easiest. Yeah. And you can mix it with aloe vera juice, and then you've got double whammy there.
Yeah.
Seaweeds, also great for healing a leaky gut.
Oh.
And then bitters do too. So one thing that bitters do, and I'll talk about bitters in a minute if you like, because
Yes.
I love bitters. Bitters will help to heal a leaky gut too. They'll help to close up those gaps between the cells in the gut. Stress, relieving stress is also important. So we can use things like lemon balm, Melissa. We can use bitter orange flower, vervain, adaptogens such as tulsi and ashwagandha, are all going to help with stress, because any gut problem, there is always an element of stress. And it's chicken and egg. Did the stress cause the gut problem, or did the gut problem cause the stress? But if you can help with the stress, it's always worth doing, however you can do it. I use a lot of flower remedies for stress as well. They're a big favorite of mine. I love flower remedies.
Nice.
We can relieve gas with things like fennel, cardamom, bitter orange peel. I make a really nice liqueur every year when the Seville oranges come out in January in the shops. I'll make a liqueur with them. Often put in some cardamom pods, coriander seeds, things like that, and I just steep them in whatever alcohol I happen to have available, be it brandy, vodka, whatever, and I make a liqueur with that, and that makes a really nice aperitif. It's delicious. Yeah.
Sounds so good.
Relieving pain. If someone's got gut pains, most people can get hold of ginger, and ginger is so good for relieving gut pain. But otherwise, wild jam, Dioscorea villosa, is another favourite of mine for gut pain. Less easy to get hold of than ginger, but it depends what access you've got to herbs.
Yeah.
So bitters do so much. Bitters, I would think I give bitters to nearly everybody at some point, and I think most herbalists do, don't they? Because they're so important. They do so much. I was actually looking at all the functions of bitters, and they just do everything. So they improve digestion by increasing all the secretions, the salivary secretions, the stomach secretions, bile from the liver and gallbladder, pancreatic enzyme secretions, and also pancreatic hormone production. So that then controls blood sugar. So bitters do an awful lot. They're also useful if we've got either diarrhea or constipation. They will ease either. They're great, also useful for reflux. So stomach acid, excess stomach acid. And if someone's got some excess stomach acid and heat, red tongue, yellow dock is absolutely the specific herb to use. Drops, I would always do it in drops for something like that. I wouldn't do high doses, but that's a wonderful one. So I have a formula for the digestive bitters tonic I've made. I don't do many formulae, but it's one that I've made and is very, very popular. And it's because it's a balanced formula of cooling bitters, warming bitters, aromatic herbs. It actually suits everybody. And it's got in it artichoke leaf, so Cyanara. It's got angelica, arch angelica, so that's warming bitter. And the artichoke is cooling. It's got blessed thistle in it, Carvenia benedicta, fennel seed, of course, super bitter.
Yeah.
It's also got centurion, another super bitter orange peel, and it gives it, rounds it a little bit and makes it a little bit less aggressive, if you like.
Yeah.
And it's got ginger in. So, it does everything. And I suggest people just take a few drops to start with and in a little water, and then they can do it before meals, after meals, as needed. It's just such a successful formula. I love it. I mean, I take it. I think it's great.
Yeah. Does it taste okay with the ginger and the orange peel, or is it still like, whoo?
It's, if you're not used to it, yes, it's all. But people get used to it very quickly. And I always say, just put it in a little water, because it's a little bit powerful to start with. But then afterwards, most people end up taking it neat because it's okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And that taste, like the bitter taste, is something that we have such an aversion to in modern culture, but it's actually really important to get used to that taste, right?
It is. I remember when I started learning to be a herbalist, and we were having to taste bitters and taste. I did not like it at all. I found it really difficult. But slowly, I actually really like bitter taste now.
Mhm.
I will
Yeah.
put dandelion leaves in my salad, no problem.
Yeah.
Chicory, endive, I grow it and I put it in my salad because
Yeah.
I actually love it. So I just tell
Yeah.
people, anyone can get to like it.
You'll get used to it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and so it seems with herbs too, especially around dinner, we've got bitters, we've got like more carminative herbs.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
do you like to blend what's the difference between those and what functionally?
So carminative herbs help digestion. They're aromatic herbs, and they will help digestion in different ways to the bitters. Bitters work much more on secretions and do you know, I'm not sure exactly how carminatives work, but I do know that they just help with digestion. They get rid of gas, but they probably all work in different ways. So there'll be things like fennel seed, like caraway and cumin seed, like ginger is carminative. So all of those, the non-bitter digestive herbs, they're the carminatives that basically get the digestion working better. Yeah.
Yeah, in your blend you have both the
I've got
aromatic carminatives and the bitters.
Yeah.
And I see that like worldwide in cultures like outside of the US. I'm saying everybody does this except for us in the US. You have
So embarrassing.
aperitifs or you have digestifs.
Yeah.
You have
Or even just using fennel in the food, or in the sausages.
An Indian restaurant, there's anise seed, fennel seeds. There you have
It's like
that
a mint,
at the end of the dinner.
Well, you say the US is not good. Our country, UK, was pretty bad when it comes to bitters. We're just as bad, actually.
Okay.
Maybe that's why we are.
One or the other. Who copied who knows?
Yeah.
But we were really bad. We didn't use aperitifs. We didn't use bitter herbs. We didn't use digestive spices until really quite recently. I'm still unusual in getting people to have bitters.
Okay.
So no, don't worry. When we go to France, when we go to France, to Europe, of course they do it. They've never stopped.
Yeah.
But no, we're no better than the States.
Well, it just seems to me like such a great, hack, really.
Yeah.
Like it helps everything function better if you have some bitter and carminative herbs before, after your meal. And one of the easy, it's so easy just to have a couple drops of a tincture or to have a little liqueur.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
And then that way, then a liqueur is actually a medicinal.
It is
aspect and a part of the meal. And I think about all these like liqueurs on the shelf at a bar. Like I wait tables and there's all these different liqueur, but like half of them are actually medicinal.
Yeah,
they are. We don't even realize that.
I mean, a martini. A martini is bitter, isn't it?
Yeah.
Should be bitter.
Yeah.
Right. I was thinking about my new parent friends who have babies and they get colic and, they get gas and bloating and stuff. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do for like infants, babies?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And I've seen a lot of babies and a lot of children have been brought to me, and it's just so nice because they are usually very easy to fix. Awesome. Nearly always there is a food intolerance. And with a child, I rarely give herbs at all. I just work with diet. Obviously, if they're being breastfed, then it's what's coming through mom, and that can set off colic, or it's what they're eating. If they've gone on to solids or whatever, because often first solids are going to be wheat and dairy, I'm afraid, or some of the first solids. So it's very possible to muscle test. You have to use a surrogate to muscle test an under 5. So you use an adult as an in between. So you've got you're touching the food on the baby. The mum's or the surrogate is holding the baby, and I'm using the mum's arm, the surrogate's arm, to muscle test. Okay. Does that make sense? To make a little circle.
Yeah, makes sense.
And find the food that they're intolerant to, and you treat the colic. I wish I'd known about it when my children were small.
Oh, yeah.
Well, yeah, in a way, babies are still part of the mother for a while.
Yeah.
And I've heard too that all babies have leaky gut because their gut hasn't been fully developed yet. you know? So
Right.
it's a lot easier for them to get intolerances.
Yeah.
Especially if they're getting a formula with soy and wheat and
Oh, yeah.
dairy.
Yeah, that's not great. Yes, unfortunately, babies on formula can have major problems. Any formula can have major problems. And if mum's not able to breastfeed, then that is a problem. And it does happen. But anything that mum eats will go through to baby. So it's really useful if they're breastfeeding, because then you can give mum fennel tea, whatever, and you're not giving it direct to baby, which I always prefer not to. Otherwise, you can bath a baby in fennel tea, which is a safer way of treating them.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, that will be absorbed through the skin. And you can bath a baby. Lemon balm, lemon balm tea would be a nice one for a baby, wouldn't it? To bath a baby in lemon balm.
Yeah. Love that.
And they will soak it in and be useful. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I've never.
I think that's so smart.
Yeah, herbal baths are one form of medicine, application, and so it would make sense that babies that are so sensitive, that will be a great way to do it. Yeah.
So I think we do have time for a few more questions, and I wanted to get into some of the specific gut issues that we often see in our practices. So like, we've mentioned a little bit about IBS, and what about like SIBO or, another like infection?
Well, SIBO, I mean, there is some controversy around SIBO and IBS, and some people say all IBS is SIBO and all SIBO is IBS, and what I do think is that SIBO doesn't require an absolute rigid protocol. I've seen and heard and listened to quite a few herbalists over the years talk about SIBO, and they really seem to tell you that you have to do it this, and this, yeah. And I don't think that's quite true. I do think using antibiotics to treat it is using a hammer to crack a nut. Not necessary. It's quite useful that someone's been on antibiotics and they get better. That tells you that it very likely is SIBO.
Okay.
So I find that a useful thing, but that's usually accidental. A patient comes on they say, gosh, my digestive symptoms improved when I was taking antibiotics, and they've come back again now I've stopped. So that's useful information.
Yes.
But it comes down to the same thing. Treat what you find. Get the diet right. Use the right herbs for the symptoms. Heal the gut. Stop snacking, because the main cause of SIBO, there's two main causes of SIBO. One is PPIs, lansoprazole and omeprazole, the drugs that reduce acid. And that's a very big cause of SIBO, because get rid of the acid in the stomach and you don't kill the bugs that are coming through. So then they go through into the small intestine and they're not supposed to be there.
And they get stuck.
And the other cause, and then the other main cause of SIBO is snacking, constant snacking. If someone doesn't have gaps in between food, then that migrating motor complex, that MMR, MMC, that goes through the gut and cleans through the small intestine and cleans, never has a chance to do it, because there's always food being processed in the small intestine. So it never gets cleaned out.
Wow.
So if you deal with those two things, then you can start treating SIBO. Yeah. So treat the cause, find out what the cause is, treat the cause, and you treat it in exactly the same way. You really do. It's nothing different. I don't like the killing idea. I don't like the idea of killing all the bugs. I don't think that's a great idea. Bugs will sort themselves out given the right opportunity.
Yes. So you're not even going to be giving antibiotic herbs to someone with SIBO. You're going to be supporting and building the positive environment for the gut itself.
Absolutely.
That's really interesting. Yeah.
And so how do you tell the difference between like a SIBO or like an H. pylori situation or Candida? Or does it even matter? Do you treat them all the same?
I don't think it matters, to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, H. pylori is a bacteria that is meant to be in the stomach. It's meant to be there. It's just, and if you never test for it, you'll never know there's a problem, will you? Because I mean, it has to be done conventionally by medics that has to test for it like that. So H. pylori I never worry about. You know, I don't think it's an issue. If someone's got stomach ulcer, then we treat that. We treat the underlying problem, and it will improve.
Yeah.
H. pylori is not automatically bad. Well, what was the other?
Well, it also the question is like
Candida. That's right. Yes. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah.
But you're seeing H. pylori. Some people will see H. pylori as the underlying problem. I guess is the problem.
It's only the underlying problem. Well, it's not the underlying problem because
right.
to get it there in the first place is the underlying problem, isn't it? And that's what I would call the underlying problem. So how has it multiplied in the stomach in the first place? Why is it multiplied in the stomach in the first place? What's wrong with the terrain? That's what you have to fix. Fix the terrain, and then the H. pylori will sort itself out. We don't need to go around pretending to be medics and killing things, if you like.
Yeah. Well, I do wonder about parasites, though. Is that one thing that you do want to do an occasional cleanse for, like once a year?
I do. If someone definitely has parasites, then I will use antiparasitic herbs. Yeah, and I've had some nice successes with that. So I had a patient who had been a district nurse for many years. She knew about hygiene. She knew how to treat. It was threadworm, I believe. I think it was threadworm. She'd had 3 or 4 rounds of conventional medication to treat it. She'd done all that absolute hygiene stuff. She knew what to do. Nothing was fixing it. Nothing could fix it. She had a food intolerance. I can't remember what it was off the top of my head, but she had a food intolerance. I needed to alter her diet. We altered her diet. I got her eating pumpkin seeds, grated carrot, the standard pomegranate seed. Yeah, I got her doing that. And I gave her some antiparasitic herbs. Off the top of my head, there would have been some wormwood, there would have been some neem.
Black walnut?
Yeah, black walnut. Yeah, off the top of my head, I can't remember exactly what I gave. But she had 2 different formulae that she alternated, 1 week on, 1 week off of each formula. Within, I think, a month, she was great, all sorted.
Awesome.
Wow.
But I think she needs to do the diet work as well. I think that was really important.
Yeah.
Alongside taking the antiparasitic. And it's the same with Candida. I used to treat Candida. I won't treat Candida specifically anymore. It's a natural yeast in our microbiome. It's just got out of hand. Yes. And what that means is that everything else in the microbiome has got decreased. So we fix the microbiome. We treat the microbiome. We treat the diet. We treat the gut, and it fixes itself.
So in the case with Candida, is that more often that there's a lot more sugar than there should be, and so the Candida is okay?
You have to fix the diet. You have to get rid of the sugar. You have to get rid of most of the fruit too, because fruit is sugar. And you have to get rid of the juice smoothies, the not smoothies, the juices, because that is unopposed sugar. So yes, you've got to get the diet right in order to treat Candida, for sure. Yeah.
And in a way, it's getting the diet right that is what is treating Candida.
Yeah, it is.
Not even really doing anything. Yeah.
And putting in the probiotics, eating the fermented foods, all those things as well. But if you don't do the basics,
right.
I mean, when I first started, yes, what we did, we killed Candida. We used antifungal herbs. I stopped it, and we did the Candida diet. Never ever have I done that again. I just found it wrong. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good to hear.
Apart from sugar, so that sugar's
sugar, and alcohol.
Yeah, within reason. Yeah, they don't have to be complete. Sugar is the real baddie, unopposed sugar.
Yeah, it just keeps coming back to diet, huh?
Every time. Sometimes think I'm not a herbalist, I'm a nutritionist, but
Yes.
Yeah. And then the herbs that you use are mainly adding them to the diet.
Yes.
Except
if they can, but they might have tinctures. They'll have bitters. Bitters will always be tinctures because that's easier to take. And they might have them as food in the diet. They might have them as powders that they take in capsules, or they mix with their food or whatever. But there will be herbs too. Yeah.
So last question I have, just back speaking of the diet, is can you share some of your favorite foods to eat and things that you incorporate into your diet on a regular basis or that you're constantly recommending to people? I'm curious about some of these recipes that you're recommending to just give us some inspiration.
Well, green smoothie. Green smoothie is number one. I am a real fan of green smoothies. As I said, I talked about some of the herbs I put in, but I would put in anything green and fresh. So broccoli, mange tout peas, celery, parsley, you name it. If it's green and it's fresh, then it goes in the green smoothie. Lemon to make it taste nice. I would put a bit of garlic in, because raw garlic is so good for us, so good for our microbiome. Yeah. And that gets whizzed up for my breakfast. So that's always on my breakfast.
I have a question about that.
Yeah, go.
So, because I've also heard that for the first meal of the day, especially if you run colder, you don't want a cold breakfast.
Yeah.
So if people are cold, do you still
you can put ginger in it? You can put ginger in it. Bit of ginger, extra garlic. You soon make it warm. It's not difficult. Yeah.
And
you
then
don't have to actually have it hot. Even if it's a cold smoothie.
No, it would destroy the enzymes.
Right.
Yeah. And then as far as like all the green things going in, do you also have to worry about the kale and spinach if it's raw, doing that every day? Like you want to just kind of be on that?
I wouldn't put those in every day. And if I did put them in, it would be in small amounts.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes. I mean, oxalates, they're not good. So certainly that has quite low. I do tend to put broccoli in most days, but I don't think quite so high in oxalates as spinach. I don't use spinach at all, actually. Well, maybe occasionally in the spring when I'm growing it, but spinach isn't something I put in. I'm very cautious with raw spinach. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. And then that's a good opportunity when you're making your smoothies to add your powders in too. If you have like a powder blend of mushrooms for the fiber or marshmallow.
Yeah. You can put all those kind of things in. It's a really useful way of getting herbal medicines into people, and picking your own and going out and finding it and learning what it is. Yeah. So that's my herbal medicine hit for the day, actually.
Yeah.
And then teas, of course. So nettle tea, lemon balm tea. I grow fresh lemon balm, fresh lemon verbena. I grow tulsi, so I've got fresh tulsi. So all of those as teas right through the day. Ginger. I mean, you talked about cold people. Put cold people on ginger tea, which they usually like. And that is so good for warming them up and improving circulation and improving health.
Yeah.
It's great.
One of my favorite teas. Yeah. Ginger with like a little pinch of cayenne and a little pinch of maple syrup.
Yeah. Yeah, you see, I couldn't drink that. I'm too warm.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm
a coldie.
She's cold. I'm hot. Yeah. So like, we don't really drink the same tea. You don't want any ginger.
That's right. I have to be very cold to have ginger tea.
Okay.
It's just so important to listen to your body and work out what's right for you as an individual. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. Any other recipes? Did I cut you off with after the?
Well, I also make another liqueur, actually. I make a black walnut liqueur.
Oh.
They make it in Italy, Nocino.
Yeah. Yes, that's so good.
Yeah. And so that's made with black walnuts when they've still got the soft shell inside. So it's green black walnuts, if you like. But no, actually, I don't use. I Juglans Regia I use, not the Juglans Nigra.
Okay.
So it's Juglans Regia, and that makes a really nice liqueur as well.
Nice. I haven't tried that.
Recipes. Yeah, it's super. I make it in June, early June is the time to do it. You leave it much longer than they develop hard shells, and you can't do it then. And you're getting an antiparasitic, you're getting an ulcerative, you're getting something to work on lymph, on liver. It's just such a good medicine for the body overall. Yeah. It's a lovely one. And last year I made a midsummer tonic. So I went out on Midsummer's Day and I picked St. John's wort flowers, some rose petals, some calendula petals, some And basically, I went around collecting just lots of different herbs from the garden, and I made a midsummer tonic with it, which is so nice because it's tonic. It makes you feel good.
Yeah. Lovely. Sounds great. Sounds like something we could use right now during this blizzard to lift the spirits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
Well, cool. This has been an awesome discussion. I've learned a lot about digestion and clarified some concepts for me as well. How can people get the book or find out more about you?
Well, it's being published by Aeon, AEON, and I believe there is a distributor in the States as well. So, and that's who to look for. Amazon has it, or you can get it from Aeon. Yeah.
Awesome. And do you have a website or Instagram or anything like that?
I'm on Instagram. In theory, I'm getting a website, but my son's being a bit slow. I did have a website, and it all went wrong. And now he says this winter, he says, I will do it for you. So wonderful. I may have a website to come. I am on Facebook and I am on Instagram. Yeah. Christine Herbert.
What's your Instagram called?
Christine Herbert, herbalist, I think. I seem to remember. Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Nice.
Not very good at Instagram. I was told I need to do Instagram because young people like Instagram, and we need to be on there as well.
Our age people like Instagram. Young people are all on TikTok.
Oh no, I can't be doing with that. No, I definitely.
But yeah.
Same.
Anyway, thank you for being on the show, Christine. It was lovely talking with you.
No, my pleasure.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
It was
Thank
lovely.
you for asking me.
Absolutely.
Okay.